Hi there, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for this APMG webinar in partnership with SPOCE. It's Mark Constable here. I'm part of the APMG team in the UK, and I'm joined by our guest presenter, Harminder Ahluwalia, who's going to talk us through some facts and figures about AgilePM today, which is in the last 10 years or so has really established itself as the world's leading framework and certification for Agile project management, with 150,000 exams all around the world so far. So yeah, that's what we're talking about today. And we're hosting this event as part of the Agile 20 Reflect Festival. You may indeed have found this event through the festival website, but that's quite an interesting initiative. It's celebrating 20 years since the launch of the Agile Manifesto, and so it's a community-led series of events throughout the month of February. Yeah, hundreds of events online, I think. So yeah, worth checking it out, because I'm sure there's lots of great content throughout. So that takes us on to a bit of housekeeping for the session. I'll just quickly run through a few bits. So the first thing to note is we are recording the session, and everyone that's registered will receive a follow-up email from us at APMG as soon as the recording and slides are online. Secondly, you have an opportunity to submit questions at any point throughout the presentation. So you should see on your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar control panel an area where you can type in questions. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the session, and we'll try and address as many as we can towards the end. And last but not least, feedback is very important for us for our webinars in terms of planning and developing and delivering those in the future. So any feedback is most welcome, and you'll have my email address from the follow-up email, but also from the confirmation and reminder emails that you would have received ahead of the webinar. So that's it, I think, for me, until we get until I come back in a bit later. So for now, I will welcome Harminder and hand you over to Stefan. Over to you, Harminder.
Thank you very much, Mark. I wanted to take this session really back to its title, which is Why So Popular? And of course, as Mark alluded there, over the last 10 years or so, AgilePM, that's the term I'm going to use to capture all the various terminology used around managing Agile using project management approaches. AgilePM is the sort of one that seems to have landed as the choice phrase for discussing this. So you'll hear me mention other things like the SDM Agile and Waterfall and Scrum and various other Agile words that we may or may not come across. But generally speaking, I'll be reverting to the terminology AgilePM. And the AgilePM language really is to help us focus on what the core of today's presentation is all about, which is the DSDM Agile Project Management approach. Okay, so in order to do that, I put up a few what I would call exciting and interesting quotes from some people in our past and our history. You can see these on the screen now. Feel free to read those through. What I'll do is I'll show you how and why Agile thinking and Agile approaches have become so popular over the last few years. Okay, and then we'll have a close look at the DSDM Agile approach itself and some of its features, some of its strengths, and some of its messages. Okay, so I wanted to start off with looking at these quotes. And if you look at the first one, just to capture that, it's a Stephen Hawking quote. It says, "Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change." Now, words like adapt and adopt are very commonly used throughout the Agile approaches and frameworks that have come into play as the leading guidance in this day and age, right? So words like adopt and adapt very much helping us starting to think about the Agile mindset. And of course, there's another big word that you'll see common across these quotes is the references to the appetite for change and how we need to introduce, and if not already have in our organization, introduce further conceptual stuff, principles about how we look at change and how we view change. Of course, there are many adages over time. Change is inevitable, so that is one of them. But of course, one of the things that agile thinking does, it brings to bear an approach that welcomes change, and hopefully takes us on that journey that says we welcome change because change is good, and also good changes. What are the differences between good changes and bigger, larger changes? So maybe small change is something that we welcome. Another feature that the agile mindset brings to bear is from the second slide. If the second quote, if you look at the Dr. Seuss one, it says, agile practices focus on giving teams and individuals ownership. And this is a really important aspect of the change philosophy, where any approach to delivering solutions, products and services that require some kind of evolutionary, evolving delivery aspects, the team themselves that are actually there to build and deliver the solutions should realistically play a very active role. They should be carefully chosen with the appropriate skill sets, and of course they need to also be empowered so that they can help make some of those question some of the requirements, but also help make some of those important decisions that are going to shape the solution to make it the fit for purpose or the exact solution that an organization wants to realize at the end of a delivery. Okay, so there's many lovely messages hidden amongst these quotes. I'm going to go to the one in the middle from Vince Lombardi, and if you look at the Vince Lombardi one, it also touches on another really important sort of agile piece of thinking, which is about perfection and versus procrastination, and our challenges in the real world for delivering something that is whole and fully complete versus something that is effective and delivers value and allows us to perhaps gain early value by delivering things quickly in perhaps a smaller or shorter version, something that is an early interpretation of the solution versus the final deliverable, the final solution. So these quotes are quite inspiring, as you can see, and they're really, I think, start to set the scene for us as to why agile thinking has been around. Like most other project management approaches, they've been around since the beginning of time. And although we will start putting dates on things and saying things like the Agile Manifesto, for example, which was formalized in about 2001, of course, agile thinking and the need for agile thinking has been around since the beginning of time. You know, arguably the Egyptians, when they built the pyramids, they would have applied, as well as a structured sort of approach to building the pyramids, they would also have applied some kind of agile mindset for the way in which they're going to evolve components of those pyramids that they're going to build and deliver. So arguably, although DSDM and the DSDM consortium, as they were known, are going to stake a claim on the agile philosophy, which we're going to uncover in a short while, arguably though, agile thinking and their need for agile delivery and development and thoughts, principles, the processes have all been around for a long time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just give you a little bit of history, but before I do, let me show you what the Agile PM approach looks like. This is the DSDM Agile approach. It was called the DSDM Agile approach originally, and when it was sort of established. This day and age, we've got to the point where we've kind of started calling it the Agile PM approach. Okay, so I'll just say a quick word about DSDM. DSDM was a consortium of agile thinkers who in 1995 formed to try and find common ground between what were at that time key agile approaches, things like rapid application development, which most of us probably will have heard of at some point in our lives, which is rapid development of solutions. And of course, a lot of rapid application development, or RAD as it was known, was based around software development and building applications, as they're known now, but in those days, delivering software. Remember, back in the late 90s, we were going through a transition from manual systems to computer systems. And of course, that required us to do software development and coding. And that's really where these approaches started to come to bear, where there were approaches that were around like rapid application development and extreme programming, crystal clear and things like that. And then, of course, things like Scrum were born around that time as well. And all of these things started to look at how we deliver solutions in a less waterfall, sort of traditional waterfall approach, but in a more evolving, incremental, iterative delivery solution type approach. Okay, and those are again are very choice words: iterative, incremental, evolving. These are all very agile friendly words. And of course, what they do is they find their way into things like the philosophy that the whole AgilePM approach was set up around, and that's the visual that you can see on the screen now. The Greek kind of Parthenon with the pillars. At the top, you've got the philosophy, and if you look at the philosophy statement, the red one at the top, it says business value emerges. Now, emerges is our first bang to rights, if you like, agile word, isn't it? So already we're saying there's a flavour of something coming about as a result of doing stuff, and that's what the word emerges is starting to lead us to. And it says when projects are aligned to, and then it talks about clear business goals. Of course, this is what we would deem as the driving factors behind any initiative for delivering a solution: the business value and the clear business goals. But what we want to do in this philosophy is deliver frequently. Okay, so this is also taking us down this idea that actually we need to look at the solutions that we want to provide into the business or project management world and our business environments, and decide how we're going to release them to the end users. Okay, and of course there are a number of sort of terms used for the way we approach things, and really what this is doing is starting to separate our mindset from the traditional big design upfront type solutions, where you would have a lot of thinking going in at the beginning and establishing a key core set of requirements to quite a detailed level, and it challenges that thinking versus this is the big design up front versus enough design up front, which is really where the agile mindset kicks off and starts saying, well, look, guys, a lot of organizations in this day and age are operating in very different environments. We've got the dynamics of the faster changing world that we seem to be experiencing, the everlasting shout-outs from management, to show us value, show us things quickly, deliver it now, or even deliver it yesterday. Yeah, the I want it now philosophy that seems to be overarching a lot of our organizational environments. So, of course, what we're looking for are ways to put solutions in front of the customers, perhaps more quickly, and give them value that they can use early. And whilst they're using those products and services, we can still evolve them, perhaps, and create the final deliverable solution. So it kind of brings in this idea that we've got frequent deployments to the customers. Yeah, so phased delivery broken up into small deliverables, things that we can release to the organization or the end users and customers for them to actually use some of the solution, if not all of it, while they are evolving it, while it's being developed. And this is quite a nice idea. But of course, in order to do that, we need to look at the rest of the philosophy, which involves the collaboration of motivated and empowered people. Collaboration is a very important point of thinking, important word in an agile environment and an agile mindset. The collaboration. If you look down amongst the objectives there, you can see I've highlighted some of these words. Collaborate to deliver a fit for purpose business solution. Of course, collaboration means bringing together more than one, okay, and bringing together the contributions of more than one, and involving those people in the right way, engaging them in the right way within a project or within a solution delivery approach. Excuse me. So to collaborate, we need to create perhaps teams of people, and that's naturally the place where the Agile PM approach starts to come into its strengths, because it starts talking about how to create these teams, who should be involved in these teams, and how to fulfill some of this overarching philosophy. And of course, those words like motivated and empowered, well, where does motivation and empowerment bring us? Well, actually, they're kind of two sides to the same coin. One of the ways you can motivate someone is to actually empower them. And when we say empower them, we need to empower them with not just their ability to contribute, but we need to empower them with respect and trust. And of course, these are very important factors, because if you're a member of a team and you feel respected and trusted, for example, then perhaps that will give you a nudge to be more motivated. Okay, so motivation and empower people. All of these are attributes and considerations that are considered throughout the Agile project management approach. Okay, so very quickly, what you can see emerging here as part of the approach is that we need probably specific components. So we've got in the Greek Parthenon, we've got philosophy and principles, but then you've got the 4 pillars which keep those philosophy and principles alive. And the one we've started to allude to is people, of course, because people are an important part of this mix, and of course that includes the teams. I'll come back to these in a short while and show you what the sort of quick view of what the organisation proposals are in Agile PM. The other thing is, of course, key focus is on the deliverables, and we've got a pillar for products and services. And for now, I'd like to leave you with a hook that says the products and services are what we're going to call evolving solutions. All right, enough design up front to get going, and then we start to evolve the solution. You'll see how Agile PM facilitates that evolving solution idea and philosophy. One of the things that's naturally occurs when you're trying to deliver a solution and bring together people and products is also the natural need to have some kind of process. Okay, and again, I'll show you what the process looks like in the Agile PM model in a short moment. But before I did, I wanted to just confirm with you that the principle and the philosophies and where they lead us is to that last objective at the bottom there, which is about change, and that's to accept the inevitability of change. And one of my favorite phrases that goes hand in hand with Agile and the Agile PM approach is the subscription to the philosophy that understanding of the solution grows over time. And this is a very important piece of thinking that the Agile PM approach helps us support. Okay, so of course this does raise the question, well, what type of projects, what type of products and solutions, what type of organizational events lead to using an Agile PM approach? Yeah? And really that's the consideration for saying, well, actually there are already Agile approaches out there, many of them. Okay, things like Scrum, which is probably the most common one. We've got Kanban and Moscow and things like all these things that help with the Agile approaches. But the question really is how do we pull it all together? When do we need to use it? Yeah. So what we want to do is start to look at some of the components that the Agile mindset brings together to help us do that. The final one on this visual that I haven't mentioned is practices. The practices are, I'm going to show you on the next slide, but they are really where the real excitement comes in. So without further ado, I'll take you to that one. And this one, the next visual here, it should give you a very quick and one slide view of what the DSDM Agile Project Management Approach components are and what they look like. Okay, so you can see in the top center there, the slide is titled "What It Looks Like," and you can see there the diagram which has kicked us off into this, and it's the philosophy Parthenon, and then you can see the practices pillar, which is the fourth green pillar. The practices, and the reason I left it for this one is because there's an example of one of the practices here on the slide, which is the time box. And these are the real excitements, because now you've got into how do we actually start to execute and deliver things in a sort of agile way. And of course, one of the biggest and most important concepts within that is to time box things. Okay. Slice things into small, quick, usually structured and organized blocks of time, where we can then focus on delivering components of the solution or parts of the solution in a very more sort of agile way, where the team that we start to pull together will be able to work in a more empowered way. Okay, so to the middle to the right, you can see the time box structure with the kickoff, investigation, refinement, consolidation, and closeout. Of course, today, guys, we're only going to be able to skim and touch the surface of the Agile PM approach. And time boxes is just one of those concepts which really you want to get into in more detail and work out how we're going to do all this. Okay. It's a natural technique, which we all do. We all time slice things. So, getting used to the ideas is not difficult for us. It's quite second nature. But in order to make this an approach which is practical and repeatable, perhaps with some kind of standard and some kind of structure, and then we look to things like this approach, the DSDM approach, because what it does, it gives us the guidelines for it, okay, and it acts as a handbook. And as you know, the DSDM in version 2 now, where we're at, Agile PM Guide Project Management Handbook, gives you all of these bits of information in more detail. So, of course, there's a chapter on time boxing and various other things as well. Okay, so this is where the excitement starts. Okay, because once you start to look at this and go, okay, so what are all these things? These are all the play tools I have available as I'm going forward. To start thinking about how I'm going to manage delivery of things using an agile approach. What Agile is really looking at is saying, well, okay, how do we approach the solution? How do we build it in an iterative and incremental way? And how do we get it in front of the customer reasonably quickly so that there is some early value benefits to the customer? So it brings that whole nutshell of thinking together. But as you can see at the bottom of the Greek Parthenon, there is a sort of caveat that comes with the DSDM Agile approach, just like with any other project management approach. Common sense and pragmatism. Common sense and pragmatism, very much so when applying these thinkings, when applying this philosophy, when applying these techniques. All right. So, of course, this relies on a degree of interpretation, arguably a little bit of intelligence, an agreement of what common sense is, and also looking at how this would dovetail into our organization's current practices. Remember, one of the strengths of an agile project management approach is that it can be dovetailed into our existing management approaches. Okay, although it is, as you can see from the process diagram here, it is an end-to-end model, from starting at pre-project and finishing at post-project. But at the same time, it can be dovetailed in to whatever you're doing as an existing structure for delivering projects and management. So very much so, helping to add value to the way you deliver your solutions in any organization. Okay, so just to go through very quickly the components on this screen so you can see them and see what Agile PM brings to the Agile party, if you like. On the top left, you've got your what I call the alien baby diagram, which is quite fondly named, is some roles and responsibilities which include orange, green and blue roles. You can see the orange, green and blue theme is used throughout some of the diagramming, and the orange, green and blue theme is quite important when looking at the Agile management approach. It brings together, for example, the orange colors, which are looking at the sort of business involvement. It also brings together the blue theme, which is the project management stuff, if you like. And then you've got the green colors to represent team level delivery type stuff. All right, so it's quite useful to have those colors. I'll show you a blow up of this diagram in just a minute. But we'll go there in just a second. So that's the organization structure. And then below that, you've got all the sort of management bits of information that flow through a typical project lifecycle: pre-project, feasibility, foundations, evolutionary development, deployment, and post-project. So this is your timeline. This is your project lifecycle, if you like, and this is the one specific for the Agile PM process. And then, of course, during that process, you will use various bits of management information to help track, record, support, document the approach and delivery that you use it doing, including things like a business case, which most people will have come across in some way, shape or form. And then 3, which are very much Agile PM products: a SAD, solution architecture definition, a DAD, a development approach definition, and a MAD, a management approach definition. Now, again, these are very well described and documented in the handbook, and of course, as part of the approach, you'd want to learn how you use those and what they'll do to help support that process and the decisions made during that process, the capturing of some of the detail during that process, and how we move that information through the process. Okay, so lots of excitement and fun around those areas of products. That's the bottom left, and then in the middle there you can see the sort of swish and the blue evolutionary development diagram, which is the process. I'm going to come on to that in just a second, but before I do, there are a couple of other things on the right hand side of this visual that I just want to cover off. Bottom right hand is the 5 stars, and this is about really the fundamental success factors when embracing this approach. And of course, there are sort of caveats that come with any project management approach, and same with an Agile approach, is when you're adopting it and embracing it, how do you really embrace it? And I'm just going to tell you what they are. I won't go into them in detail because obviously we're a bit limited on time today. But there are what we call the sort of 5 instrumental success factors to implementing the Agile project management approach successfully. And one of them is to actually embrace the SDM approach, this whole philosophy, these components, these features. Okay, and that means as an organization, you've got to educate and edify everybody within the organization to say, look, these are all some of the mechanics of helping us deliver solutions in this more agile way using this approach. The second of the 5 stars is about the solution development team, and having an appropriate approach to compiling a team, putting the team together, looking at the dynamics of team management, team stability, things like that, team skills, looking at the size of those teams, all kinds of guidance, useful guidance in the Agile PM approach to helping us do that, and actually introducing those and incorporating them within the approach. Remember, one of the big headers for the team is self-empowered, okay? So empowerment at the right level within the teams. We'll come back to this just shortly and very briefly on the next slide. But carrying on through the stars, the third star really is about business engagement, and it's about active and ongoing involvement, commitment, and support from the orange threads or the business involvement within an organization. So making sure that a supportive commercial culture is maintained where the business members and membership get involved at various levels throughout the project at the right time in the right way. Okay, and that's again helping us to do that. There's a lot of guidance to steer us towards that. One of the other stars covers the iterative development, which includes sort of integrated testing and indeed incremental delivery. So there's kind of 3 I's: the iterative, integrated, and incremental. All right, very important concepts for agile thinking. And then the final star really covers off the transparency of the approach, and the word transparency starts to allude to the agile culture that is going to propagate and advocate through this approach, where you've got solution development teams working in a development team environment, and most of them will be working in sort of very short, sharp bursts, as we said, in time boxes, using perhaps more agile ways of recording information, using their BVCs, as they're sometimes called, big visible charts, information radiators, burn down charts, Kanban boards, anything like that. If you think about how we record things, so team boards is the generic for those, and of course daily stand-ups becoming a very important instrument in the way a team meets and moves forward on a daily basis. So a lot of information there about all of those sort of things come to bear in this approach. And again, like I said, it really does help us understand how all of those things come together. Okay, so just to finish off with a bit more detail on a couple of these areas, on this next visual, you can see I've blown up 2 of those charts. The first on the left is the AgilePM process. So this is a project management process from for the life cycle of the project. So starting to treat agile delivery in the same way as we would any other project. Now remember, working in a project way of working has become kind of the default, hasn't it, within our organizations, where almost everything we do, we tend to call it a project or treat it as a project. You know, even from buying a new car or moving house, yeah, right up to delivering a new computer system, or sending people to the moon. They're all projects. And of course, what this is an approach that says, here's a way of looking at delivering something in an agile way, and that's where the blue arrows come in this diagram. And if you look at the evolutionary development, as it's called, you'll see it actually resembles, and I call it this because it resembles the heartbeat of the project. And if you think about it, it's pumping the blue arrows, which are pumping the heart, pumping the blood around the project. And of course, the focus for evolutionary development are the 4 techniques. The one we've mentioned already, which was time boxes, very important when we're doing evolutionary development. And again, the AgilePM guidance helps us understand how that works with the teams. We have a second technique, which is Moscow prioritization, the must-haves versus the could-haves and the should-haves, and the won't-haves this time. And again, there's a whole element of guidance within AgilePM about how to prioritize using Moscow. And this also takes our customers on a journey, the journey between wanting everything versus wanting something that is of value and does the job. So there's a journey using Moscow prioritization. Right? That's the second technique. The third technique is iterative development, okay, which really then focuses on our ability to deliver iteratively and develop iteratively, deliver incrementally, and deploy in some staged and phased approach. So having frequent deployments after evolutionary development. Yeah? And that's where the third technique, iterative development, comes in. And the fourth technique which very much supports, again, the overarching principles that we started off with in the beginning of this session, like team working and collaboration, is facilitated workshops. Okay, and as we all probably aware, you've all probably been party to one or other workshop up to now. And what workshops enable us to do are deploy lots of different techniques for getting some group contribution, maybe group discussion contributions, useful contributions from individuals within the teams, and then hopefully arriving at kind of some kind of group consensus. And there's all kinds of techniques that we can use within the facilitated workshop umbrella to help us strengthen our resolve when it comes to evolving solutions, understanding requirements, building solutions, testing solutions, and of course delivering solutions. So again, the evolutionary development very much supported by those four techniques: time boxes, iterative development, Moscow prioritization, and facilitated workshops. Okay, so these are all very much discussed throughout the approach, and when you learn the DSDM Agile approach, you get to learn how to use these efficiently, effectively, and become masters of these concepts, so that you can apply them readily in your organization into any kind of situation where you can see they would add value. All right, and that's always, remember what we said, the caveat. So Agile PM really goes from strength to strength, using all of these elements, these components: the principles, the philosophy, the techniques, the products, the practices, the four that I've just described there, and it really brings them all to bear. One of the final strengths that I just want to draw your attention to is on the right hand side, is this alien baby. Some people quite often refer to it as a snow angel because you've got those kind of two swishes on the outside, but I quite like the alien baby. But again, this looks at, of course, building an organization structure where the focus, of course, is to enable the solution development team. So there's 3 levels of responsibilities here, as you can see. There's a project level responsibility, okay, which includes a project manager, probably a senior manager from the business, or 2, business sponsor, business visionary, the Agile PM names given to them. We'd also want some technical input at that high level, depending on the nature of the project. Some specialists who are going to sort of help understand what that project's about. And a very important role, probably what I would call the unsung hero of an Agile PM role, is the business analyst role, which, as you can see in the center of this diagram, has got 2 colors associated with it. And you kind of look at that and think, okay, what's that about then? Well, the business analyst is the link, isn't it? It's a very important role between the project level and the solution level developers. And also, it's about him or her being able to perform that role in a way where that message is being kept consistent between those 2 levels of delivery, the project level and the solution development team. Okay, so you've got the business analyst role, very important there, and then you've got the makeup of a solution development team with various roles involved, be the sort of green sort of technical and developer roles versus some orange roles at team level, so the business needs to be represented there as well. And then you've got a couple of very important supporting roles, which you find generally with any Agile environment: somebody to act as a kind of workshop person. Again, we use the title workshop facilitator. The workshop facilitator, making sure that they can help support any project team for the way workshops are designed and need to be run and managed. And then a DSDM coach, which is an accredited role, which is like having somebody who is an expert on the DSDM approach present within the team, making sure that the solution development team are all clued up on how all of this stuff hangs together, bearing in mind that they might live and breathe their lives in the evolutionary development phase of the life cycle. But of course, what they need to understand is what happens around them in order for them to be able to do the job they're doing, and vice versa. They need to be able to see how they need to interact with the project level and supporting levels of roles. You've got business advisors and technical advisors there. sometimes these are known as sort of subject matter experts or people like that who can actually add value to the team. All right? So as you can see there, there's a lot to take in. I've done a little bit of a quick, what I think is a quick overview. Obviously, the courses that we deliver in this topic, Agile PM, Mark's going to talk to you a lot more about the sort of exams and the number of people involved in this, the user groups and everything. But what I would like to say is, look, this is a quick intro. Hopefully, what it's done is flashed in front of you some of the toys that are around to help us use the Agile PM approach, become better and more experienced, more expert Agile project managers. All right? The method has been going from strength to strength for the last 20 odd years, although sometimes during that life journey it's been referred to as different things. In 2016, the DSDM consortium went through a rebranding exercise, and then thereafter they have been known as the Agile Business Consortium, so the ABC. So when you're looking for anything to do with DSDM and its legacy of Agile thinking, you really will end up looking through the portal, which is the ABC, the Agile Business Consortium. And indeed, the Agile Business Consortium now is the rebrand that takes us forward. And what it does is it provides us with this project management approach, which applies, as you can see from the process, some structure and some rigor to what is evolutionary development, which is a very agile piece of thinking. It makes everything visible within an organization if you've got this practical and repeatable process. And what it helps us do is service our everlasting, ever increasing appetite for fast pace change. Okay, and that's really where it lives in this world. Okay, so if you're a subscriber to fast pace change, which I think most of us are, we can't avoid in our lives, then this is definitely a piece of thinking which you should add to your armory and to your mindset. Okay, so I'll leave you with one last thought, which is a famous quote. It's really saying Agile is not a binary condition. Okay, so we're never going to be at the point where we go, we are now completely agile. But what we can be is this: we can only be more agile today than we were yesterday. And that's my favorite quote. We can only be more agile today than we were yesterday. And I think that kind of brings me to my natural conclusion today, where I think about the Agile PM process, that's about all we can cover in the time that we've been given. What I'd like to do is bring Mark back into the session, and he's going to now talk to us about some of the excitement that lives in and around the Agile world and the Agile PM qualifications and exams, etc. Okay, so over to you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks very much, Harminder, and really great overview there for us. I certainly think personally you've done a great job at sort of outlining the key features, and
Hello.
Hopefully our attendees today, and we've hit the brief. So what you can see on slide, at the moment is just the global exams.
I'm hoping he'll be back in just a second. If in the meantime, let me carry on, and he'll interrupt me as soon as he arrives. But I'll show you what we've got coming up in the rest of this session. Okay, so what we've got here is a visual showing us the take-up for foundation and practitioner learning with regards to the Agile PM method. Okay, of course, APMG have been promoting this and been the custodians of this for a number of years. We're getting to the point where, you know, there are 150,000 Agile APM exams being taken each year, or to date, sorry, yeah, across 80 different countries. The handbook itself has been translated into 4 different languages. Again, this should give you some idea of the interest globally and internationally. Okay, the exams themselves can be taken in 7 different languages currently. So again, this is these are all important statistics if you think about what the size of the community is when it comes to the Agile approach itself. And what it is this approach sells the full project lifecycle, and not just during development, but beyond development. And that's why it's become so popular across the global platform. Okay. The next visual shows you the geographical split, which is quite exciting when you look at it, and you can see where in the world there has been this take-up of these exams, the approach and the philosophy. Remember, what we're looking at is organizations training people, okay, both to foundation level and practitioner level. They're the 2 levels of exam available, and then integrating Agile PM thinking into the organization that they work in. So this diagram is quite useful just to get a quick overview and a feel for what's happening around the world when it comes to Agile PM. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of excitement in various areas of the world. Okay, that's the sort of global. Oh, just so that you have the information, the foundation exam is generally a 40-minute exam. It has 50 multiple choice questions, and the pass mark is 50%. This is a closed book multiple choice exam. Okay, and then the second paper to get the practitioner qualification is what we call a complex multiple choice exam. It's a 2.5-hour exam, okay, which requires the understanding of a case study which is supplied. You are allowed to use your open book approach using your AgilePM handbook, which is the guide. And there are 4 questions, each worth 20 marks each. And you're required to get on that exam the 50% pass mark. Okay. A lot of these exams obviously are taken towards the end of a structured course. And for that, of course, we've got SPOCE, who are our hosts of this webinar, and in partnership with APMG. So the handbook and the exams are usually linked to, like I said, a course, training. It's usually about 4 days worth of learning under instruction from a trainer, under instructions from a trainer, and the exams are all accredited worldwide. Okay, so a lot of excitement around the Agile PM approach. And then on this slide, you can also see the Agile Business Consortium branding, okay, the ABC branding that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so this now has become very much a leading brand within the Agile world and indeed the project management world. And I think the numbers themselves speak for themselves when it comes to that. Okay, so what we have here are a number of opportunities. First of all, you can submit your questions by going onto the control panel. All right, so any questions you've got, and we'll endeavour to answer those. But also, if you're looking for training, and if you want to follow any of this up in any further capacity, SPOCE are the training professionals that we are representing today, and I'd like to invite you to come onto their website, which is spoke.com, anytime, or telephone the number There is currently a 20% offer being offered, discount offer on the course, which is due to run the 8th of it to the 11th of March. It's a 4-day online virtual classroom event. Okay, so yes, of course, even in the current climate of COVID and sort of the restrictions, we're still offering the training in earnest, of course. 4 days worth of training with handbooks supplied, the materials, and the exams, registrations and things like that, all under the guidance and tutelage of the SPOCE professionals. So feel free to go further and look on the APMG international.com website and indeed the SPOCE training website. If you are participating as part of the Agile 20 Reflect Festival, remember, if you put in the search bar SPOCE, you'll see a number of events that we've got, a number of free sessions that you can attend, introductory sessions. They're just a little bit more detailed than this one. This was a sort of a 1-hour session. Those are 90-minute sessions. And again, we dip into those in a bit more depth on some of the areas that we've looked at. And there are a number of those being advertised as part of the Agile 20 Reflect Festival. So do feel free to use any of the devices or sources. We've got the SPOCE website, we've got the AgilePM website, you've got the Agile 20 Reflect website, all places where you can go and you can pick up all this stuff. There are, like I said, lots of exciting offers, a lot of free stuff, and you should be, if you're wanting to get into the Agile mindset, then spend some time in the festival and see what really tickles your fancy there, and enjoy yourselves with it. Yeah, it's a festival running over February. There are hundreds of suppliers from all over the world. It's a global festival. There are lots of videos and free sessions that you can attend. Feel free to jump in, and indeed, of course, we look forward to you joining us at any future events if you choose to go with SPOCE. And this is me now saying thank you very much for listening today. I have been Harminder Ahluwalia. I'm a consultant and trainer, and if you do decide to come on some of the SPOCE training courses, you may well end up being in my company. I hope that would be a pleasure. I look forward to seeing and meeting some of you in our online virtual classroom sessions, should you choose to join those. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I think that brings this seminar to its natural conclusion. Remember, you've got the questions box option. Feel free to stay in on and put in any questions, and we'll get your answers to you as soon as we can. Okay. Thank you very much for attending, everybody. Hope to see you all soon, and enjoy the festival.
Thanks so much, Harminder. Can you hear me now? Just at the end, and apologies for the connection problems there. But yeah, thanks everyone so much for attending. I think we're going to have a bit of difficulty with the questions at the end of this session with the connection issues, so I think we will wrap up there. But thank you so much everyone for attending. I hope you found it useful today, and thanks so much, Harminder, for your insights and expertise today. Really great overview of the AgilePM framework and why it's become so popular. So hope that was useful for everyone. Take care with everything that's going on. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of the week, and the weekend ahead. Thank you all very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello?